We've been dreaming of Mars for a long time, from living on the planet and building human society to planting plants and thinking about building the future of Mars. But new research shows that Mars' past was built and life existed, which was destroyed, and we arrived late. In this video, we see what the story was. Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun. So far, humans have not been able to step on this planet, but robots and probes have moved on this planet. Many people believe that the first spacecraft to land on Mars was NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft. But this plane flew there in 1976 on a dual mission and sent us a lot of interesting information. But actually, the Soviets landed on Mars first with a mission called Mars 3. But it wasn't that special. At that time, we did not know anything about Mars, and in our opinion, Mars was a cold and dry land without life. But because Earth and Mars are so similar, scientists have asked the question, has Mars been like this forever? Or is it possible that Earth used to be Mars? And Mars was already full of life and plants. In 2022, NASA's Perseverance rover found something that could explain this. First of all, what is a stamina probe and why is it so important? Scientists have suggested that if there is life on Mars, life is unlikely to disappear without a trace, and there must be some clue of that yard or something left. Presumably, these signs should also exist under the surface of the Earth, because there they are protected from attacks and solar radiation and other phenomena. So we have to check the rocks and under them. And first, let's remember that we're not going to find life on Mars right now. Since there is probably no life there, we need to know what Mars' past was like. We are talking about a few billion years ago. A time when maybe Mars was warm and green and life existed there. In other words, we need to find dead microbes and various chemical compounds similar to those found on Earth. This is the main mission of the Endurance Explorer. The Perseverance robot arrived on Mars in February 2021. The spacecraft landed in the crater of the island and headed west after a soft landing. This island crater was once a very large lake itself, and it is likely that life existed here on Mars. The scientists suggested that these places inside the crater may still have preserved the remains of microbes. Because on Earth, bacteria lurk deep in lakes and wetlands and still tell of Earth's past, so we might be able to find traces of them on Mars. Researchers believe that this particular lake has the most scientific value of all NASA missions and the most likely to discover rocks on which these bacteria can survive. They are all here in the crater of the island, so the Endurance robot went to this delta, but walking on the surface of Mars was not so easy for this spacecraft. Default text rover had a small amount of error and landed a short distance from where it was planned, which caused NASA to fall behind the plan. And this problem caused NASA to finish the work a year later than planned. Endurance robot has a very important program for identifying stones, which is called Sherlock for short. As the robot approached Delta, it examined more objects looking for traces of organic red molecules in them. Now it was time to split the stones. As of July 2021, the Endurance will begin drilling and gathering 4-thin cores of sedimentary rock. The total number of stones collected so far is 18, but these 4 cores were from 2 different stones called skin-reach stone and white-reach stone. The first pair of nuclei, the ones in bold, didn't look very interesting at first glance. And they were like those stones that we found on the ground, and there was nothing special in them. In a closer examination, inside these stones, round masses with dark-colored materials were observed. These dark sand dunes may have been deposited on them by an ancient river, the same river that later entered the mouth of the island. It is even possible that this river brought the rocks here miles ahead of the dams, and this is also a very interesting topic, because by nuclear study of these rocks, we can learn more about the past and distant regions of Mars. Then in April 2022, the Endurance probe arrived at the delta and then found what they were looking for, making discoveries that surprised scientists. Perseverance found 2 other rock cores that contained organic matter. This pair of cores was taken from the Wildcatric slate, but these 2 are different from the rest of the samples. These cores were lighter and more uniform in color. It seemed that some kind of fine soil formed them, and that's why it's so important, because the smaller the rock grains, the more likely there are traces of life. On Earth, these small clumps are often found at the bottom of wetlands, where they can preserve the remains of organisms for years, and that's exactly what we found on Mars. Of course, we did not find evidence of creatures in the rocks. We have found the stone itself, and this is a very big step. In addition, relatively more organic matter was found in these 2 cores than in the other samples, according to the scientists. These materials were probably deposited there when the lake evaporated and now contain information from billions of years ago. Well, with all these explanations, can we conclude that there really was life on Mars? First, we need to know what are the traces of organic materials discovered on Mars, and whether organic means life or not. Organic materials are materials that contain carbon, and on Earth they are often associated with life, but not always. Sometimes they can be formed as a result of other processes. Therefore, we cannot say with certainty that life existed on Mars, because we do not know whether these molecules are truly the remains of Martian microbes or the result of some other process. But this discovery has taken us much further and is very important. To understand more about these organic materials, we must continue to dig into the rocks. Scientists need to find several more examples of fine-grained rocks, and studying the materials of these rocks can help us a lot. All these valuable samples were collected so that in the coming years, NASA will send another spacecraft to Mars to bring back other samples for further testing, as this robotic instrument has limited endurance and no testing facilities on it. The Earth. The mission was planned for 2027 and 2028, but since it reached Mars, it won't be possible to return the spacecraft to Earth until 2033. Perhaps before then, the Endurance robot will be able to discover something else. Who knows if it is a confirmation of the past life of Mars? I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Hope to see you in the next video.